It is you're listening to Pensioners 106.7 FM Agbarigo Nirike Ibadan. That's the Agbablode radio, the first labor radio in Africa. It is. It's on this note that I welcome you on board to today's episode of Healthy Living. My name is Bilkis ISHOLA TAIWO. I thought it was over, thought you were done with me. Yes, on Healthy Living, what we get to do is that we get to discuss issues that has to do with our health. It necessarily does not have to be the body, but we look at our environment, we look at safety, we look at precautions, everything that has to do with the health, your food, your exercise, all of that. This is what we get to do on Healthy Living. We discuss it. Yes, on the program today, the topic we are still discussing is fire safety prevention and control. We did start this last week and I started with my guest. I'm glad to tell you that I still have my guest in the house today and we will be doing this together. Before I bring in, I'm coming. Can't see all the harvest is ready 'cause he told me so. It's green and it's all mine. Yes, I have with me Mr. Andrew Ely. Good afternoon, Mr. Andrew, and welcome on Healthy Living today.
Good afternoon, presenter, and good day, listeners.
All right. Last week we started talking about fire, and we decided to discuss this topic as a result of recent fire outbreaks that we've been having around. And we are looking at how to prevent and how to control, even if at all there is a fire outbreak. And successfully, we've been able to talk about what exactly fire is. And to an extent, we've also been able to talk about how to control fire, as well as fire preventive measures. And you also made us know that there's a fire prevention plan. I think that was where we stopped last week. So to start with on this day, I want us to look at who exactly is responsible for fire prevention. There is a fire outbreak and chaos here and there, fear, this and that. Who exactly is responsible for fire prevention?
Thank you, presenter. If you can remember vividly, last time I was here, I stated that fire prevention is a function of many fire departments scattered all over the country. I told you that we'll have a fire service department at the federal level and at state level. And as a matter of fact, by extension to that, they have other stations scattered over the places in order to have access to areas that you have this kind of incidents. Be that as it may, you can also agree with me that apart from the statutory organization or agents responsible for that, we also have our own role to play as individuals or stakeholders rather, because we are the ultimate loser if there is any case of fire incident.
All right, thank you very much. Now, are there any fire prevention and safety guidelines? Like this is a guideline and you as a house owner, you as an organization, employer, you as this, you as that. Do we have any preventive and safety guidelines that guides us?
Yes, we do. We have basically about 3 guidelines.
Okay.
Which focuses on implementation of a program that includes preparation, prevention, and recognition of fire hazards. Okay. What that simply means is that if like we said earlier, we are talking about the fire prevention plan. That means there is contingency on ground that in case
There's a
there's
fire.
a fire outbreak, what do we do?
Okay.
Where do we take it from there? So if such a plan is on ground, then it means that there has been adequate preparation waiting for the fire, which may never come if the preparation is okay.
Okay.
In the eventuality that it doesn't come, there are still certain things that you need to do to prevent it from even coming in the
at
first
all.
place. And while that is going on, then there are needs for us to know the hazards that are inherent in the environment we find ourselves in. Because if you're able to know the potentiality that a given circumstance can suddenly turn to fire outbreak, for instance, if you are handling fuel, like we said, maybe petroleum products or any other combustible material, you should know that you have to prepare for eventuality in case there is outbreak. So that is one aspect of it. When you implement a program, that program will be able to take care of that aspect.
Okay.
The second one is make sure that you practice proper handling of combustible and flammable materials. This is basically for those institutions or industry that deal with all these combustibles.
Okay.
Let's say, for instance, the one that readily comes to mind, like a filling station, whereby at any point in time they are always prepared that there may be eventuality of fire outbreak. So in that case, there should be proper handling of all these combustible materials, so that's why before you buy a fuel, they must insist, the dispenser must insist that you turn off the engine, because at any point in time there may be a spark. So that is also a prevention strategy.
Okay.
Then the third aspect of it is that you must maintain safe housekeeping practices. This is very important both in offices and at home. When you have what that means is that having proper arrangement of things, storing, like for instance during the time of scarcity, though it's now in the past.
Okay.
In Nigeria, you see people hoarding fuels.
Yeah.
Because they are expecting scarcity in the nearest future. As a result, your children may not know that what you kept in that gallon is petroleum products.
Okay.
And they may, one way or the other, go close to it with a light. Before you know it, boom,
there's explosion.
It's fire outbreak. So we have to arrange our things properly. That is the preventive guidelines that we have in regards to that.
All right. Thank you very much. That brings me to the question that are there specific tips to prevent fires, especially in our workplace? We're focusing on the workplace now.
Definitely there are.
So what are they?
You see, when you look at an institution, you discover that an institution has so many things to protect. Apart from documents, there are so many other things, even the infrastructures, the facilities, and the lives, which is more important. Those things have to come into mind. Then, in trying to prevent that in your work environment, the first thing that must come to your mind is the accessibility of the firefighting equipment, if there are. Because if you have a plan, definitely you must have this equipment.
Yes.
So if the equipments are there, then how accessible are they? Can anybody have access to them in case if there is fire outbreak, or are you the only one that knows where it is locked up? So if you are not around in the case of fire outbreak,
the equipment are there but no one has access to
that
it.
Is it. That's number one aspect of that.
Okay.
The second aspect you have to look at is proper disposal of materials, especially combustible materials and waste. You see, some of the time you notice that there's what we call waste dump.
Yeah.
Where people normally pile
refuse.
up their waste or refuse. You discover that the public waste dump is most often than not always on fire.
Yes.
You begin to ask yourself who threw the fire there. There is what we call counter reaction.
Okay.
So the gases that are produced, they are so volatile that when the heat reaches a saturation point, you see its fire will just occur.
Really?
Yes. And it always starts in the form of smoke. That's why visit most of the dumps that you see. You see that they are always on fire. People don't just throw ashes or fire into that place is as a result of what we call counter reaction. So that is the second aspect of the preventive ways that you can adopt in your work environment to prevent fire. Then the third one is regular maintenance of equipment and facilities.
Okay.
You see, when, like in this studio, you have a lot of electrical wire and gadgets.
Yes.
If they are somehow exposed, whereby positive or negative, or the live wire and the other wire touches each other, what you experience is spark. Then smoke will come from there.
Yes.
If it is not taken care of, before you know it,
It's
everywhere will be on fire.
Mm.
So you have to engage in what we call regular maintenance, not just only equipment, even vehicles.
Okay.
You see, some people will be managing, the battery is bad, they will find one way or the other to bypass the battery and things like that. Suddenly they are exposing all the wires. Before you know it, they will touch, the negative and the positive will touch each other, and the electricity current will pass through them, and that will lead to fire.
Okay.
Then you have what we call safe storage. You have to store all these combustible materials. For instance, the fuel, like we have said earlier on,
Okay.
the fuel is not supposed to be accessible to even our children. They hardly understand what it means.
Okay.
As far as they are concerned, it is in liquid form, and it can be mistaken either for lacasera or any other drink in that likelihood. And before you know it, they may be playing with it, and it can also lead to fire. Then a clean environment. When the environment is clean, you see, it goes a long way to even prevent most of the hazards, apart from fire now, that are supposed to arise in that environment.
Okay.
So a clean environment is very key in prevention of fire outbreak. Then precautionary measures. Do we take care of certain things that we're supposed to do at the right time? Like this studio
Okay.
has been so regular in enlightenment campaign concerning fire outbreak,
Yes.
which is so regular on this station.
Yeah.
And I believe you me, if the people or listeners can adhere to all these instructions, the rate at which we are having fire incidents will minimize. You see, when you look at precautionary measures, so many individuals do certain things out of ignorance, or let me say carelessness. Like we said, if you are, for instance, using gas cooker in your house,
Yes.
this precautionary measure that you will take will be quite different from somebody that is using charcoal to cook.
Very true.
Because in your own case, you are living a life like you are sitting on a keg of gunpowder, which can explode at any point in time. That gas is compressed under pressure, and they are looking for a way to escape. And in the process of looking for a way to escape, they are also looking for reactions.
Oh.
They are looking for something. They are very reactive, looking for something to react with. And once you give them that opportunity, boom,
Wow.
that's the next thing that you hear, and everywhere will be in flames. Then the building security. Building security in this case is just talking about the plan that we have talked about. If you have a house and you have your doors and windows, but you didn't remember to put exit door, if fire starts from the entrance, you can't have any access or accessible roads to escape. Definitely you'll be trapped until something or until a miracle happens before you can come out of it. So many people have tried to beef up the security in their house by reducing the number of doors and windows. And at the end of the day, we'll find ourselves in a precarious situation. Another aspect of that is use of burglary proofs in the windows.
Okay.
If there is any eventuality that there is fire outbreak, there is no way you will be struggling to break the burglary in order to escape, which will make it more difficult for you, because at that point in time that you have that emergency, your brain may not be able to think straight.
Yes, very
And
true.
your mind might not even go there. You might even try to force yourself through the burglary and end up dying there. So these are the things we have to take into consideration in building, in construction of building. We call it building sanitation. What are the contingency plans that you have put in place when your building is in the construction stage?
Unfortunately, the burglary part of it is not our fault.
It's not our fault because of the situation in our country.
Yes, the security.
But there should always be an exit door. That is the high point of my analysis now. There
Okay.
should always be exit door, which can also be secured. If the exit door does not exist, definitely if something is happening at the only door or the
That
entrance that
means
you have, there is no way you can pass
there is
through
no
the
way.
fire.
There is no way.
So, but if there is exit door, you always go through that place to a safer environment.
All right.
Then the last of it is designated smoking area.
Okay.
You see, if you have a plan, like in these our premises, you have such plan,
Okay.
and we have fire alarms,
Yeah, we do.
which can easily set off at the slightest of the smoke. So somebody now coming in to smoke is like the fire system will recognize that smoke from this cigarette as fire outbreak,
Okay.
and the alarm will set off, and before you know it. So in this case now, there should be designated area for smoking. You cannot just smoke anyhow, and you cannot smoke anywhere. And government is trying to restrict that. Even in public places, there are certain areas you have to go and do your smoking if you must do that.
Many thanks to you, Mr. Andrew Ely, for shedding more lights on the specific tips for us in order to prevent fire, especially in our workplace. Let's go on a break, and when we return, of course, we'll still be talking about the preventive measures to take on fire. Please stay with us.
For every prayer and every seed I sow, Lord of the harvest knows I'm reaping back 100-fold. The land is green, it's green, oh, oh. The land is green, it's green. Can't you see? The harvest is ready, 'cause the Lord of the harvest told me so. It's green for me. It's green for me. Standing alone can be a heavy load, but my vows I won't be breaking, though my heart is aching. I got a word and I won't let go. It's your will I'm seeking, so I keep on believing. I see it now, I understand, I know, so I embrace it. Dance once again. It's
Yes, you're welcome back, and the program you're still listening to is Healthy Living on Pensioners 106.7 FM. And of course, we are looking at fire safety, prevention, and control. And Mr. Andrew Ely has been doing justice to questions that I'm putting through to him that has to do with fire. Before we go, because our time is going on the program, we have talked about preventive measures, of course, for fire outbreak in our workplace. Now to our home. How can we prevent fire in our homes?
Thank you. When you come to the home level, I
Okay.
think we have to be more proactive now, and it is something that is pertinent to almost every one of us.
Yeah.
And it is expected that everybody should listen attentively and key into these proponents that we want to showcase now. Firstly, at the home level, we have to understand that home is the place that we spend most of our time, and most especially cooking is the most important thing that everyone does at
Very
home.
important.
So as we have that in mind, you discover that they said the women are the good managers of the kitchen,
Yes.
and that is why this area, the women folks had to listen attentively, because they are the ones that this area concerns most. Firstly, you always have in the kitchen, you make use of stove, whatever type of stove, either the gas cooker, the kerosene, whichever stove, once
Electric.
anything that you use to cook.
Okay.
So you have to make sure that that is very, very put or set up on a clear table,
Okay.
which is devoid of other materials. It is only, apart from sanitation aspect of it or hygiene aspect of it,
Okay.
just let the stove stand on its own, preferably on a table
Okay.
where your eyes will reach it, wherever you are sitting in that kitchen, and you make sure that no other material comes close to it.
Okay.
Because the closer the other combustible materials are to the stove,
Okay.
the more likelihood that is likely to go away from where you want it to be. Because the fire or the stove is always a regulated compartment or equipment
Okay.
or device that brings out a certain level of fire that you need to do your cooking. So that's first aspect of it. So the kitchen has to be the place that you set your stove and let it be on its own. Then the second aspect of it is that each time you are cooking, you have to be in the kitchen. You may not need to have any other reason to be elsewhere.
Okay.
You cannot divide your attention and expect to get the best. For instance, you are cooking in the kitchen and you want to attend to a crying child in the bedroom, or you want to go to the toilet, or you want to go and listen to the television, or watch the television or listen to radio programs. That attention is already divided, and as soon as the whatever you put on fire is heated up, the likelihood is that the temperature will continue to increase, especially if there is no more water in whatever you are cooking. The temperature will increase, and at the increase in that temperature is also hazardous, and it can lead to what you don't want to happen. You don't want it to happen in your kitchen. Second aspect of it is that we have so many gadgets at home, which includes dryer, television sets, radio, blender, just name them.
Freezer, fridge, microwave.
They are so numerous.
Iron.
In as much as, apart from the refrigerator, which most often than not is responsible for most of the fires, which people don't know.
Really?
Yes. So many times you discover that office got burnt in the wee hours of the night, shops and kitchen, because the fridge is always on.
Okay.
And there is what we call thermostats,
Okay.
which regulates the inflow of the current.
Okay.
So if at any point in time there is a break in that thermostat, what we get is a spark.
Wow.
And that tiny spark will be as a result of the wire. And once the wiring system catches that fire, it will spread it on to other parts of that compartment. And every fridge has what we use in padding it, which is like a foam.
Yes.
Which is highly combustible, apart from the gas which the fridge uses in cooling system.
Okay.
Everything about that fridge, apart from the metal aspect of it, is highly combustible. And before you know it, the whole of the house will be on fire.
Okay, in situation whereby one uses a stabilizer to regulate the electricity, to control the electricity inflow of that freezer.
Correct, yeah.
Is it safer? Is it safer than not making use of anything?
That's correct.
Okay.
Very, very safer.
Okay.
Because that regulator is a break between the current and the compartment or the device.
Okay.
If there is excessive current, instead of it to pass through the device,
Okay.
the regulator will be the one that will the circuit will cut short,
Okay.
and the current will no longer be able to transmit into the device.
Okay.
That is the good aspect of that. But how many of us use them at home? Because you consider the price. 1,000 watts, they will tell you the price. You say, it's too much. How much did I buy the device? But you don't know that it is also protecting your
Safer,
device
yes.
for you. So that you will not be spending your money with the electronics repairer all the time.
Okay.
Then second aspect of it is that, though I've just said that you should always stay close to whatever you are cooking.
Yes.
Very,
you did
very
say
important.
that.
So that you'll be able to know when the wind is blowing the fire, you'll be able to regulate
Control.
it. If there is any need that the water is drying up from whatever you are cooking, you know what to do. But if you are not there, once it starts burning, you see, I've seen somebody that left a kettle of water on hot plates, electrical stove.
Okay.
That, it was my first time of knowing that kettle can melt like nylon.
Wow.
As soon as the water dries up there, the kettle starts heating up, turns red, and starts melting like aluminium for that matter.
Wow.
So in that instant, if help did not come on time,
Yeah.
if it were to be a room that you have a rug or let me say these flex tiles or rubber carpets, it will easily catch that fire and the whole house will be on fire. Then you have to also maintain electrical cords. That is wiring system.
Okay.
You know, we have different types of wiring system. The ones that are exposed and the ones that are not exposed, that the conduit and the open. If all of them have their own safe limit, they are also hazardous in one way or the other. If the one that you call conduit wiring,
okay,
which you may not be able to see, but you have poor sanitation in your house and rats are living with you as tenants, you can agree with me that in the process of gnawing, they can eat up the wire. Unknown to them, positive and negative must not touch. And once they have eaten this wire up, you get a spark in your ceiling or wherever you have them. Same thing with some of us that has cats at home. Cat is a very curious animal. Once cat sees a wire you plug to the socket, it will want to play with that wire. And in the process of trying to, they can cut the wire in the process even with their teeth.
So what about those of us who have cats as pets?
Then you have to run the risk of having them as well too. So we have to do everything in a way that will also put our life in a safer situation, and not just our own life of others and properties we have. Then we also know your shootouts.
Okay.
The shoot off in this case is what you call cut out. Okay. You go to any house, the wiring system will always have a place that you can easily turn off the whole of the premises. Everybody should know that. In case there is any fire outbreak in relation to electricity, you don't need to use water or whatever equipment to go and fight that fire. Just be courageous enough to turn that socket or switch off.
Okay.
If you're able to do that, you have solved that fire incident by 70%. Yes. But if you can't locate it, the more you are pouring water or any other material, you are endangering your life and that of others. So we should know our wiring system at home. Very, very important. Then we should know how to store flammable products. We have said it before. Like petroleum, methylated spirits that you use for first aid is also flammable.
Yes, it is.
So if you don't keep it very well and you play with it, it can also help fire outbreak in your house. Then you also, there's what we call I don't want to mention the name. It's insecticide that is in canister form.
Yes.
So when you spray it, when you see a cockroach, for instance, in your kitchen, you pick one and spray. That flammable material, once it passes through or on top of the gas, the fire in the gas will help it up and it will go out of control. So we should also be very careful with that too. So we also have to be careful with candles. In fact, we should eliminate the use of candles at home. Very, very hazardous. Most of the fires at home are as a result of candles. So many people would say there is light out in the community. They will set, because candle is very cheap. They will put on the candle and place it on even if on a conspicuous place, usually on a table which is made of wood. Sometimes they will put it on the floor, and in the process maybe it does off and it melts to the point that there's another material helping it. Before you wake up, there was a couple that lost 2 of their children in the process. Candle in a chemist shop. They closed the shop that they are coming. The children should stay inside and play while the candle is lit on the shelf. Before they could come back, because the burglar is already locked from outside, the children hung to the burglary and they returned to what I don't want to mention. So that is as a result of carelessness too on the parts of the parents. Then we have to make sure that if we are going to be a smoker, you should have certain areas that you should not take your smoking to. Very, very important. Because smokers, apart from the advert they normally make, smoke that you are holding is hazardous to you and to the environment. That is the much I can say on that. Then we should also be wary of cats and rats at home, that, like I've said earlier on, these are animals. Some people might see cat as a pet. Some people might see rats as a pest. But by and large, these two can contribute to fire outbreak at home, even without you suspecting any one of them. And at the end of the day, Ishayeni. That's where it has led to.
Wow,
So that is the procedure that we have to follow at home to make sure that we minimize incidents of fire outbreak.
Many thanks to you, Mr. Andrew Ely. I must confess that you have done justice to this topic, talking fire, safety, prevention, and control. You've put us through what fire is. You've told us how we can prevent it. In fact, you even gave us the fire prevention plan, how to go about it. You have been able to tell us how to prevent. You have been able to tell us fire prevention and safety guidelines. All of this, even our offices and even in our own homes. And I want to believe that our listener out there have been able to they've been able to learn, and they've been able to grab the lessons from all of these things that you have told us. Many thanks to you, Mr. Andrew Ely, for coming on the program. I sincerely appreciate you. And many thanks to the producer of this program in person of Agnes Obatoyi. And to those of you who joined us through our Facebook platform. I see Aderemi Feoluwa Olamide, Modupe, Clara, Oyebanji, Oyeleke, Bingpe. Many thanks to all of you for being a part of Healthy Living this afternoon. Next week is another moment when we will be talking about our health on the program Healthy Living. Don't forget that your health is your wealth, and do everything possible to take care of it. My name is Bilkis ISHOLA TAIWO. Let's do this again next week. Bye.
You told me that the land is green. Hey, yeah. It's green. Oh, oh. The land is green.